All right, everybody, come on in. All right, everybody, come on in, come on in. Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome back to the Wives Club. The Wives Club was started in 2021, 5 years ago now. Wow, when I booked a session with the late, great Kevin Samuel. So for anybody new here, hi, I am Maggie. Maggie, the substitute teacher. You may know me for my cooking channel. I make food and femininity content. However, one of the things you may not know about me is I was one of the ones who had a one-on-one session with the late, great Kevin Samuels. Not for me. I always like to say I am happily average, emphasis on the happily. But I always used to get convicted whenever he would say, where are the older women to teach the young? And I wanted to do my part. I wanted to help. I am a reformed modern woman, and I like to teach from my own lived experience. Had a college boyfriend that I married right out of college, was married for 10 years, 2 boys from the marriage. Absolutely loved being married. They're now 16 and 18, but I learned a very hard lesson. And I always like to say, I don't know if it's college or corporate America that got me thinking, anything you can do, I can do better. And unfortunately, the marriage ended in divorce. But we do co-parent really well. So that was very humbling for me. And life brought me back to someone I grew up with who kind of sat me down from the beginning and told me what his expectations were. So a very different relationship, but I've never been happier. And that's been over 15 years now, second time around. So I like to react to Kevin Samuel's content because in that session that I booked with him, like I say, it wasn't for me. I asked if I could create a community, a private community within his Patreon. And he actually gave us his blessing, and he came up with the name The Wives Club, because Kevin always used to say that being a wife is a mindset, right? You have to be a wife before you are married, before you are found. So what we would do is that we would take his content throughout the week from Instagram and from YouTube, and we would react to it as current wives, former wives, and future wives. So we brought that here to YouTube, and I'm with you all. And now that he's gone, his message still lives on. And so I like to react whenever his channel puts out a new montage. So this past Friday for March 2026, there was an episode. And I have my notes here, so forgive me for looking down. But the title of the video is New Season, New Outcomes, Change is Good. Hi, AJ. Thank you so much for being here. So I have linked the original content in the description so you all can watch it without my commentary. And I have some notes here that I'm going to give you all my perspective. And hopefully it's helpful. As a disclaimer, Kevin's content wasn't for everyone. Everyone liked to listen to it, but this message is only for the young women who want to be married, who want to be wives, who want to have meaningful relationships. If you want to do your own thing, that's totally fine. You're just not going to be happy here. All right. So let me get my clips. And you all can come on in. I see you on Instagram, and I see you all on TikTok. All right. So see if we can get through this. Mr. President should be coming over for dinner, so I need to get in the kitchen soon. All right, pardon me. So let me scroll back. This episode was a montage of 2 women and 1 man. I always say I don't feel like I have a place to speak to men. I mean, I do have 2 sons with my ex-husband. We're very proud. But I believe that the older women teach the younger women, and the older men teach the younger men. That's how it's been for hundreds and thousands of years. I have a lot of men in this community that support the work, but I'm going to skip over the portion of this episode where Kevin was coaching the man who called in. I listened and I have a lot of thoughts, but I just don't think I have a place to speak on that. Thank you so much, Condemnia, for being here. Your wrench is back. I found it. I figured it out, y'all. My channel got hacked. I lost my moderators and super chats, but everything's back now. Thank you, Yaya, for being here. And thank you, Slade. I appreciate the compliment. Okay, so let's continue, or let us begin, shall we? So Kevin asked in his monologue, he said, are people allowed to change? And basically he was saying, you know, in the human race, we all grow up and we should be collecting lived experience along the way. I don't believe our life is just to live and die and it didn't mean anything. We should be getting better. We should be improving. I've shared with you all, I recently turned 50, so I'm in the second half of life, but as a mature woman, we should be able to be a better version of ourselves, ladies. And I'll say one of the problems that we see in society today is there are a lot of women who are just older, but they're not necessarily any better. They're just doing the same foolishness, if you ask me, that they were doing when they were young. And I don't think that's a good use of the years that we have here, but you didn't ask me that. All right. So Kevin also said in this monologue, we know what we're supposed to do. We know what is needed for the outcome that we want. The truth is, most of the time we're stubborn. Some of us take the long way around the mountain. And what I have learned in this space talking to women, and it was actually quite frustrating for me, is I would talk to women and you would even hear them when Kevin would talk to them and they would say, you know what, I know, or my ex told me that, or my parents told me that, or they have had an opportunity to course correct, but for whatever reason, they chose not to. And now we're here and somebody is supposed to help you do what you already know to do. So let's be honest with ourselves, ladies, all right? Myself included. All right, so Kevin said, especially in our community, we have this thing about keeping it real, being 10 toes down. But he said that comes with consequences. And oftentimes when people are like, I'm just going to keep it real, what ends up happening is they're so wrong, but they're just loud and wrong. And really, it's our ego and our pride that won't let us say, you know what? Yeah, I can do better with that. You know what? I am a little bit rough around the edges. You know what? I am a little bit loud and argumentative. But for whatever reason, we're just so stubborn that we're just keeping it real. You just take me as I am. This is just me. Okay, you can go down with the ship, but is that really going to give you the outcomes that you want? Hello, want to be natural. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so Kevin also said in our community, sometimes change can be offensive. And he actually said it in this episode, and I love that he said it. He said, if you are offended by this message, I want to offend you. Kevin had a way of like rattling our cages, right? He is not a people pleaser, or he was not a people pleaser, but he said, yes, those who disagree, those who say, it don't take all that, or I don't want to hear that, or, you know, some of y'all are in the chat, you know, heck no, whatever it is, that's fine. Just go do that over there. And allow the people who want to grow, allow the people who want to learn from their mistakes to get better and do better. All right. So all of us can adjust as necessary. And you're never too old to improve. You might be too old to get the outcome that you want. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Condevia coming in with the $20. Thank you so much. He said someone mentioned something about snacks. Gluten-free, please, and thank you. One of my day ones. So absolutely. You know, I'll cook anything for you. So let me know what you want. I'll make it and ship it out to you. But thank you for the $20. I do this just because I want to give back, but I'm very grateful. So thank you. Okay, let us continue. So we need to adjust as necessary. And Kevin said something also in his monologue. He said, if you believe in something, you should be doing it. He said a lot of people have all that smoke, all that talk. And ladies, sometimes we're guilty of this. You got girlfriends or you know women who they love to debate. They almost get a thrill like going off and getting somebody told. But it's just words. Because if you look at their life, what they're arguing with you about, what they're howling at the moon about, they're not doing it themselves. And Kevin said, if you believe in something, you should be doing it. So ladies, I'm going to say, myself included, I always say, consider the source. And let's be honest, we shouldn't take financial advice from someone who doesn't have their finances together. We shouldn't take weight loss advice from someone who struggles keeping the weight off. And likewise, ladies, we shouldn't take relationship advice from someone who cannot keep a relationship. And that's just the God's honest truth. There is no way that I would be here, nor should I be here trying to tell people what to do that I haven't done, unless I'm coming from a place of honesty and saying, don't make the mistakes that I've made. All right, so be very careful about that. And when you look at the women that you listen to, the women in your family, the channels that you watch, this is what I do. Ask yourself, ladies, would I trade places with them? Do I want their life? Would I lay down everything that I have to walk out what they're doing? And if the answer is no, in one ear and out the other, keep it moving. All right. Sweet Peach says, who is that and why is he an authority to tell women who and what to be? His name was Kevin Samuels, and he had a lot of lived experience and a huge audience, but you don't have to listen to him. Just like you don't have to listen to me. You're free to live your life and be completely happy with your choices. So I hope that helps. All right. Let us continue on. So Kevin asked in the monologue, again, like I said, what is the point of growing up if you don't improve? So ladies, ask yourself, at 50, I should be a better version of myself than I was at 40. At 40, I should be a better version of myself than I was at 30. At 30, I should be a better version of myself than I was at 20. Now, of course, we know that men love youth and they love fertility, and that's wonderful. That's not going to change. That's when we tell young women to go ahead and lock down the relationship that you want. But my concern is that we see so many older women trying to hold on to that youth that is gone. That ship has sailed. And even though I see pieces of my younger self, but I am a mature woman, and all it takes is let a 20-year-old come in the room or come on the screen and you see it. And it's beautiful to see, but the value that I bring, the quality of my character, the things that I've worked on, I can honestly say I am a much better woman, especially to a man, now that I'm older. But I'm only with him because I was there when I was younger. All right, ladies, so I always say it's not impossible, but it does get harder as you get older. Carla says, thank you for always keeping it real. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. One of my high school classmates, we grew up together. I love it. Okay, so like I just said, Kevin said in this episode, I respect your right to be foolish. And ladies, women are starting to see now that the world is not going to stop you from running off of the edge of a cliff. And I don't take any joy in saying that. How many women now, their eyes are starting to get open and they're looking left and right, especially as we age and you're doing everything alone and it's harder. But you thought you were superwoman. You thought you were better than men. You thought you had all the time in the world. And you realize everybody was like, well, okay. How many times have we heard women say, I had a flat tire on the side of the road and men just drove by, or they see me struggling to lift something and they don't help me. All of these things are a result of what we have put out there, unfortunately. So if you don't have a man of your own, even me, I don't expect other men to care for me the way my man does. Now, I'm so grateful if someone wants to be helpful, but I am not entitled to another man's time, resources, priority, amongst all the other things that he has to do. So be very careful about that, ladies, all right? Don't be foolish. And Kevin also said in this episode, don't be on a principle crusade. This one is interesting to me. And I see this often with women, especially. I mean, you all have seen me on some of these podcasts. And I sit there sometimes and I just listen to women. They are so determined to go down with the ship on whatever their principles are, right? They want to prove to you how, women are better than men, or they want to prove to you that I don't need a man to be happy, or I can do anything a man can do, or we should be in all these masculine spaces. And I just look at, okay, you have an idea, but is it worth your life? You've been loud and wrong, and everybody heard it and everybody saw it. And you had that moment of going viral, or that moment of, getting somebody told. But at the end of the day, you come to a quiet home and silence can be deafening. And this is another thing that I warn my young students about, be very careful. There's so many entities that want to take advantage of your youth and your vigor. All right. My man will tell you, Mr. President will tell you, all that gusto that we have, all that. I was one of those strong headed ones too. But we have that because we are supposed to be mama bear for our family. We are supposed to be, that 10 toes down for our husband, for our children. There's nothing wrong with working, but believe me, corporate America will take your best years. And then next thing you know, you look around and you got nothing to show for it when that company gets bought out, or you get laid off. I work in tech. It's happened multiple times. Be careful about, y'all know I don't talk about politics or anything like that, but just be careful about these crusades or these movements or these things that, you want to hang on. And it's a moment in time. And you've been loud and protesting and out there. And, before you know it, the pendulum has shifted. And what was so important, what you spent all your good years, protesting about, now it's like, yeah, nobody really cares about that anymore. Do whatever you want to do. And you look back and you got nothing to show for it. So be very careful about that, especially my young women. I had one student, and she had something socially that she was very passionate about. And she started making content about that. And I said, look, you want to be married and have a family. This thing that you are very passionate about is not going to change, meaning 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it will still be a debate. But you may lose the opportunity to create something that's meaningful. So I suggest you pull back, focus on your family first. And then when you're older and your kids are grown, if you want to talk about environmental stuff or family stuff or women's issues or whatever, have that debate then. But do not waste your best years and give all your energy to something that's not going to be a good investment of your time. And she decided to pull back, and now she's married with a baby on the way. All right. So very happy. All right. So be careful about those crusades, ladies, especially when people want you to be the hands and feet and the arms and legs of their movements. Okay. So moving on. Hello, Gillis. One of my day ones is here. Thank you so much for being here, sweetheart. Okay. So the next part of this monologue, Kevin said a couple things that I want to expound upon. And it is so profound. When you listen to his content, I know people would tune in to hear him going off on the women that would start being difficult with him. But his monologues were pure gold. He said, the thing that men fear is living a life of insignificance. And ladies, we can just blow past that and be like, yeah, I know, okay. But I remember my ex-husband telling me, it's important to me that my life mean something. And as I've gotten older, and especially now that I have boys, ladies, men have a purpose. That is something that I don't think we will ever understand, because we are not equal. We are not the same. We're equal in value, but we are very different. And one of the things, and I can't speak for men, but I understand that men have a burning desire to make sure, like Kevin said in this episode, that they don't just live and die and it never mattered. Men know, I think, a lot more strongly than we women do, that life is going to be hard. They accept that. They know that it's going to be backbreaking work. They are going to have to be the ones to face the enemy at the gate. They are going to be the ones that take the jobs that no one else wants to do. And it's going to take 10 to 15 years off of their life. Men know that, and they accept that. And that's why I admire them. But in doing so, it's so important that the years, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the fear, all of the things that they just kind of push down for our benefit mean something. So when I was listening to this monologue, ladies, why should you care? Oh, thank you so much, Irving, for the €2. I appreciate that. He says, greetings, Maggie, and good people. I appreciate you so much. So ladies, when you have a man that is courting you or interested in you, instead of filling up the space with all the 34 things on your wish list. If you know this about men, that men want their lives to mean something, if you want to be a part of his life, what you need to do is to find a way to help his life become more meaningful. That is how you win, by giving your man the support system to allow him to be more successful. Now, if you hear this and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't take it, run for the hills. That's fine. But being a wife is a support system. It's not about us being out front, but that is how we win. That is how we get, the adoration. I love hearing men talk about their women, men talk about their wives that believed in them, that were there through the struggle and everything. Oh, how they elevate those women that have proven themselves. But a lot of times, modern women, when you get the attention of a man, you can't shut up. All you want to talk about is where you want to go, what you want to do, what you want to have. It's all about me. And you miss that every day. A man is thinking, why am I here? And why does it matter? And it brings tears to my eyes as a mother, because I'm just thinking about how much men are willing to sacrifice, and we don't even notice that. All right. So, ladies, be very careful about that. If you have a man that you admire and respect, when he starts talking about his goals, when he starts talking about his dreams and the things that he wants to accomplish in life, do not laugh that off. Do not blow it by. Do not shrug that off. Listen intently and find a way to make yourself useful. All right. Find a way to take those little rocks off of his plate so that he can focus on the big rocks. That is how you win together. That is what makes you valuable to a man. All right. Thank you so much, Killis. So, in saying that, Kevin said a man's greatest fear is living a life of insignificance. And he said a woman's greatest fear is dying alone. And that's the truth, ladies. We don't want to be alone. It's terrifying for us to think about, I got to go through the next 40 to 50 years by myself, working, burning the candle at both ends. Nobody really cares if I ate today, if I slept well, if I'm sick. Nobody even knows that I'm here. I could, pass in this apartment and nobody's really calling to check on me. That's terrifying. It's very different from men. Men accept that. Men would be happy, like I told the ladies last night in the wife school, on the beach, in a cardboard box with a beater car. They'd be totally fine with that. Not us. So the way to get both of those needs met, ladies, the way to ensure that you aren't going to die alone is to make sure that you partner up with the man that you admire and respect, become useful to him, so you're helping him avoid his biggest fear, and he's helping you avoid your biggest fear. All right. Now, if you're one of those women that I don't need a man, I don't mind being alone, I like my own company, fine. None of this applies to you anyway. All right. But I thought that was really important. Right. So Kevin said, this is not about being men's. Kevin said that men understand that they're probably not going to be historically significant. Right. Not everybody can be, a great inventor or, have their name in lights or be spoken of in the history books. It's not about that. Right. We live in this culture where foolishly we think if you're not some type of celebrity, you're meaningless. It's not that at all, ladies. A big part of men wanting to have significance. This is why family is so important to men. This is why legacy is so important to men. This is why having children of their own that they want is important to men. So, if you're one of those women that family is not really important to you, it's going to be harder for you to get the type of man who wants to create a legacy. You might just need to find somebody that, is just happy with living life, and y'all go do your thing. All right. Erin Laura, you're here with the wrench. I'm glad I got it fixed. It is a symbiotic relationship. And I hear the garage door. Mr. President is here. Let me hurry. Okay. So Let's continue on. So Kevin said we need to stop looking backwards and look at the outcomes. So ladies, if we are at a point in life where we're like, I don't like, how this is panning out. How did I get here? The past is the past. That ship has sailed. What are we doing every day to get the outcome that we want? All right. Because tell the truth, we don't want to be superwoman. Ask yourself. I'm always saying, for all these women that are loud and proud, find me the women that are burning the candle at both ends and loving it well into their 40s and 50s. Most of the women I know in their 30s are already tired. And I've worked with a lot of executive women, being a former one myself. I'm happy as an individual contributor because I have the energy to focus on what really matters. But when you get them alone, like Kevin would say in his consults, most of the time they're like, I hate it here. This long commute, these long meetings, people that I don't like. So that's the future for a lot of us, unless you want it to be different. All right. So Kevin said, you all know that he did consults, like one of the ones that I had with him. And he said most of the women that he spoke to that had advanced degrees, those were some of the main ones that said, you know what, I really want to stay home. I really want to have a simple life. But you've made all the choices to complicate your life. You've made all the choices to stretch yourself too thin. And now you've gotten yourself in a pickle that you can't get out of. All right. So be very careful about that. All right. So the other thing that Kevin said is how young ladies are looking at Gen Xers. And this is why I feel so strongly about helping our young women. Whether you know it or not, ladies, newsflash. If you are, in my generation, some of y'all get upset when people call you auntie. I think it's well earned. But we are the example, whether you want to be or not. You can think that you're still snatched and you can still move like the young people. The young people are looking at you and they're making one of two assessments. Either, wow, I really want to, be like that. When I'm 50, I want to be able to, look back at my family, watch my children grow, travel and move into the second half with my husband. How can I accomplish that too? Or they're looking at you like, look at that. I don't want any parts of that. I have young women that are students of mine. They send me videos online of older women exposing themselves and trying to dance and heavy makeup and all this stuff and body enhancements. More gray than anything. And there's nothing wrong with gray hair. I've got some. We've earned it. But the young women aren't looking at that with admiration. They're looking at that like, is this what we've come to? And ladies, if you think the young men that are taking advantage of that take you seriously, you're fooling yourself. All right. Irving is saying, yep. Okay. So we need to get out of our feelings, even if our feelings are hurt, and start actually making the changes like this episode was. New season, new outcomes. What changes are you willing to make? Some of us, how you feel, you can't see the forest for the trees. And you all have seen it, when these women sometimes on panels or whatever, and they get cornered, all of a sudden it's just like how they feel is all that matters, that you can't reason with them. You can't talk to them. They just have to make sure the world knows how you feel. Okay, we all have feelings, but if it's not helping you move forward at the end of the day, I think it's useless. All right. So he was talking about one woman that consulted with him. And he said that she worked in an department store. Nothing wrong with that. But he was saying, yeah, most of the women that talked to me would trade it all, high-powered jobs for a simple life. And this woman was so offended. They want to be home. They want to go backwards in time. I've heard that, oh, you want to be a trad wife. You want to be this, you want to be that. It doesn't matter what I want. I'm happy with what I have. But he asked her, he said, okay, you want all these freedoms, but free to do what? And ladies, if you really ask yourself, like he asked this woman that he was talking to, you're working retail hours, standing on your feet, selling somebody else's product, reporting to somebody else in exchange for a paycheck? And, those of us with big jobs and with big degrees, sometimes it's really humbling. We've put all of our weight behind these projects and these deadlines and these companies. And I work now, but I work in a way that prioritizes family. But it's really heartbreaking. Some women really believed that all those years of sacrificing for that company would mean something. And you get blindsided with that call into the office. You know what? We don't need your position anymore. And then what? What was it all for, right? Britt Taylor says, yep, absolutely. Erin Laura says, it's really shocking to see women my age on social media posting the salacious things that they do. We've all seen it. And I know, ladies, especially if you have a figure, that's great. If you've kept it together, that's great. I get told all the time, I'm 50, but I look, like someone in my 30s, but I'm not. Now, I appreciate the compliment, but all of those goodies, it's not for public consumption. The problem is they don't have anyone that remembers you when you are young and you all can laugh together as you grow old together. So now the world has to give them that adoration because they don't have someone. Like I told you, my mom and dad have been married over 50 years. And when he sees her, he still calls her a young lady, and they're over 75. All right. That's very rare. And you're not going to get that from everyone, nor should you. All right, Erin Laura's agreeing. All right, let us continue. So, one of the other things that Kevin said in this episode, which is heartbreaking, but he said in our community, when you ask most Black women about the average Black man, they rank them low. It's like we think we're better than our men. But if you ask us to talk about men from other communities, we have instant respect for them. And again, that's heartbreaking, especially as a mother. And ladies, ask yourself, when you think about your mate, do you have respect for the average man, or does he have to be something exceptional to even have a conversation with you? And I'm going to tell y'all something Mr. President said, and it's going to hurt, but it's true. And I remember Thane told me this a long time ago. As boys, men grow up knowing that they have to have something to offer to be able to have the woman that they want. They have to, whether it's the job or, if it's something superficial, have the car or be able to, provide or whatever. Men know that. And ladies, if we're being very honest, we make no qualms about, you can't even talk to me unless you meet whatever's on your list, right? I've seen it. I've been out with people I used to know, and an average man in a uniform tried to speak to her. She walked right past him like he was a piece of furniture. And I was I was floored. I've never seen somebody be so disrespectful. Pretty privilege. It's turned into pretty punishment for her. But anyway, so men know that they have to have something to offer, to have an audience with us. However, what Mr. President said is, women think that we are entitled to an audience with any man. Just because I like you, I should have your time, I should have your attention, I should have your admiration, I should have your adoration, I should have anything that I want just because I'm interested in you. And women are learning a very hard lesson now, that karma is coming back to us. Because now men are what? Walking right past us like they don't see us. How many women are complaining that they're invisible? Men are what? Going out with their own friend groups and not approaching women at clubs or wherever they go. I don't know. I don't go. How many of these single events are women complaining that they get all glossed up and nobody's there? So ladies, we have to understand and we have to expect that we've done this to ourselves. So now we have to be worthy of the audience that we are asking for. We are not entitled to a conversation just because I said so. And I'm telling you, high value men, the type of men that Kevin had an audience with, men like Mr. President, men like Thane, I remember I asked him one time, somebody wanted his opinion and said, Maggie, would you ask Thane this for me? I try, y'all. And I said, so-and-so has a question. He was like, she's not entitled to talking to me. She's not entitled to an answer from me. And I was like, oh my God. So I had to make up something kind because y'all know I'm diplomatic. And I realized that Mr. President confirmed. He was like, yeah, I'm not talking to women. This is what I'm doing. Either you get on the program or you don't. So, ladies, that's what it's coming to. So, if you get offended hearing that and you're fine being alone, that's fine. But I keep telling y'all it's going to get worse before it gets better because men are the ones who do the asking. So, they are the ones telling us what they're going to accept or not. All right. Aaron Laura says, shout out to Thane wherever he's bush watching from. Yeah, he's still around. He's still watching. I know Aaron Laura says, wow. Irving says, it's one thing to feel exceptional, but actions and outcomes will 9 out of 10 times determine that. Exactly. Oh, crap. I know, Bert. Right. So, a little tip from Auntie Maggie. All right. So he said, our men, they don't shirk at that reality, right? When you ask a man in our community, a Black man, about the average woman, right? She's not conventionally gorgeous, she may have a simple, job, but she wants basic things out of life, maybe a family of her own, a simple home. Men don't look at that and say, psh, if you're not a supermodel, don't talk to me. Men understand and they accept what reality is. We are the ones, ladies, that are like, oh my gosh, if he's not driving the bus or if he's not the CEO or if he's not the president, I don't want anything to do with him. That's not helping us, ladies. Maybe you need to change that outcome. All right. Hello, Elsa. Thank you for being here. We're talking about relationships. All right. So let's move on to the callers in this episode. And again, there were 3, 2 women and 1 man. I'm going to skip over the feedback to the man. So the first young lady that called in, I thought she was adorable. She was 24 and she was asking Kevin for his advice for her image. All right. So she's 24. She has a baby face. I can relate. And so she wanted to be married. She wanted to be a wife, which are 2 different things. But she wanted help with her image so that she looked older, but not too much older. Okay. So Kevin was giving her some advice. Now, admittedly, I am not a stylist. I've had to hire a stylist. So Kevin was giving her feedback on like her appearance, but there were some things that he said that I think can be helpful for all of us. All right. So he was talking to her about her femininity, do you wear heels, fragrance, all of these things. But what he said that stood out to me, he said, femininity is the one thing that men don't have, right? So ladies, especially when you hear men saying, they don't really need us now. They don't really need us to like exist through life. But one of those things that is so attractive to men is femininity. And you can have it at any age, right? Because that's the one thing that masculine men don't have. So they actually crave it. So if you can lean into your femininity, it's going to help you, whatever that looks like for you. So Kevin was saying the problem in these modern times is that we women think we can turn femininity on or off. Again, whatever that means for you. I tell the ladies that I coach, make sure you have a simple grooming routine. Make sure you're intentional about choosing the type of clothes that flatter you, but are also feminine, right? So again, not a stylist, but I tell my students, avoid anything unisex, ladies. Don't be wearing, men's cut clothes or just baggy, loose, or things that I used to be guilty of this. I work in tech, go to conferences, that those free giveaway t-shirts, I would just wear them if it was clean and it fit. Be intentional about the clothes that you wear. Even like your hair and your makeup, just don't run out the door with a baseball cap and shades on or a hat to the back or whatever. Maybe there's a time and place for that. But if you want to stand out, if you want to be taken seriously, everything you do, down to the jewelry that you wear, should scream quietly feminine. All right. So some tips from me, the non-expert. So he talked about footwear. He talked about accessories. He talked about making sure she had her nails and toes done. Again, all I will say is this. I'm going to tell you like Mr. President told me, nothing about you should remind me of a dude. That's how he talks to me, y'all. So what does that mean, ladies? You know what it means, okay? Everything from your grooming to your hygiene, to your skin, to your voice, to everything. There needs to be a softness about that. And that is something that you can change. Now you can hire experts. I have a stylist. If you want Ria's information, I'll give it to you. But what I also took away from that conversation, this young lady who was 24 in her prime, she called to get advice because she was taking this seriously in her youth. And I'm so proud of her for taking advantage of the one thing that all of us have, even if you're not gorgeous, all of us have a youth. It's fleeting, but we all have a youth. And I also noticed that if you go back and you watch that episode, like I said, I linked it in the description, Kevin's tone changed immediately. That was another takeaway from me. Everybody remembers him from being combative because that's what people want. They want to show. But he kind of sat up and he was like, okay, he went to work on this 24-year-old young woman and giving her some style advice. But if you see what wasn't being said, his body language and how receptive she was. Number one, she's taking her prospects and her time seriously. He's giving her advice. She's not arguing back with him. She was like, okay, I understand. She was patient with him. He asked her direct questions. Do you wear this type of clothes? No, I don't. She gave him direct answers. She wasn't taking him the long way around the mountain. All right. So if any of this is hitting home, ladies, these are things you can change. And Kevin was so like in a fatherly, like mentoring kind of mode with him. And I remember in that session that I booked with him one-on-one, so gracious and so kind and funny and generous with his time and his knowledge. But he also had a side that if you went there with him, and I've seen this with men, they will cut you clean off. And like he said, he'll match the energy. So I just wanted to call that out because that was a beautiful example of when somebody wanted to be serious and work with him, he worked with her. All right. So be mindful of that, ladies. I remember I married at 25. And at the time, I thought I beat the buzzer. I met my ex-husband at 18. He was my college boyfriend. And I remember clearly, I didn't want to be closer to 30 than I was to 20. So getting married at 25, I was like, phew. Now women are thinking they got all the time in the world. You don't, especially now. I don't know why, but I've got this bad feeling that this next decade is going to be eye-opening and not in a good way. All right. So ladies, if you have an opportunity, take it seriously. And if you got a good man, hold on, right? Irving says yes, and not the long nails. Oh, Bria's here. She said, I almost missed it. No, I moved the time. I know we had a time change, but then Mr. President said he's coming over, so I got to cook. So I'll move the time up, all right, because the man comes first. Excuse me. Irving says Maggie's length or a little longer. Thank you. Yeah, I keep number one, my nails don't grow. That's just, something personal for me. But ladies, you want to have a length that is respectable and active, because when you have these long nails, it just shows that you want to be seen more than you want to be useful. And if you're okay with being just looked at, men have a use for that too. But if you want to be kept around, you want to make yourself useful. All right. And thank you for the compliment. Okay. The next I'm going to talk about, and this will be the last one, Brittany. Brittany came in, she was 33, and oh my goodness, so much to take away from this very painful conversation. I encourage you all to go back and listen. Thank you so much for being here. I encourage you all to go back and listen. So Brittany calls in and she has a lot to say, but I like to study interactions. And if you notice, as soon as she came in, she was just like, hi, I want to add to the conversation. I have some thought, like just completely no greeting, no softness, no would it be okay? She just kicked the door down and started to say what was on her mind. And ladies, ask yourself, when you enter a space, do people kind of have that, whoa, reaction to you? That's something that I've had to work on, as an extrovert. I have to be very mindful that I read the room and don't just come in, singing my favorite song because it was on my mind. And Kevin stopped her. He was like, wait a minute. We need to really work on not being so informal. And that's something that you can do, ladies, especially when you're around a man that you admire and respect. Show that respect. Ask if it would be okay to offer your opinions. Don't just think everybody wants to hear what's on your mind because it's on your mind. That'll help a lot of y'all, all right? Yes, bad manners. Absolutely. Oh, we got Jurgen here. He says a woman is either feminine or she isn't. You can't choose that. I don't disagree. Well, I get your point. You can't choose to turn it on or off. You're right. Okay, so Kevin said we need to stop being so informal, ladies. I always like to say, and this is what I tell my students, lead with formality. Don't just start calling people the names that you want to. Call them by their proper name. And then when they allow you to say, um, you can call me Kevin. That happened in my session. And you all also heard Kevin do that on the calls whenever people would answer, okay, yes, sir, or no, say, no, sir. He was like, you don't have to call me sir, just call me Kevin. But allow people to invite you in to that space. Don't just come in taking over, right? All right. So the other thing that you'll notice in this conversation with Brittany, who is 33, good and grown, and should have enough life experience, she was incredibly difficult to talk to. Just go back and listen to that conversation. He would ask her one question, and my goodness, how she would take the long way around the mountain to answer. It was always, well, it depends. I have this thought, and well, what do you mean by that? And how should it was exhausting. And those were the words that Kevin used. And so, ladies, we have to be very self aware. That's one of the things that Kevin said before he passed. Self awareness is sexy, but I think self awareness is imperative as an adult. How are you just going on and you don't realize that the people have just disconnected from what you said? By 30, you should know better. All right. Bria says, even married, I don't offer my opinion until he asks. Exactly. I used to offer my opinion early in the marriage and it didn't come off as loving. It came off as mom or scolding. That's a great tip. Bert says it's disrespectful, and Irving agrees. Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you, ladies, what I used to do, and I have a lot going on in here. Believe me, I struggle with some of the stuff myself, but I know that I can't just bombard Mr. President every time I think something. Ooh, let me share this with him. Ooh, let me tell him. So I've had to like beat it back. And he told me very early on, he was like, listen, when I have time, I will make time. It's like, oh, never had anybody talk to me like that. I like it, but I never had anybody talk to me like that. So now I have to gather myself, gather my thoughts, even if I have to make notes in my phone. So when it's a good time for him, then I will offer my opinion, or I will at least ask first. I have some thoughts about what we talked about. It's now a good time. And I do have this free communication. I don't really talk about my products, but I'll put it back up. I have this free communication class that I'll post and share with you all because I'm going to really start pulling back now that I'm 50 and enjoying the second half. But I was invited to speak at a marriage conference about communication. Ladies, that is something we can do. A lot of you can't get out of your own way. One of the students I used to coach, her man would invite her over. He just wanted to watch his show and just have her there. Sometimes they just want our presence silently, but she just couldn't stop. Peppering him with questions, talking about herself. Well, what do you mean by that? Or why do you want me here? She's single now. And I told her, you got to stop that. And she learned a hard lesson. All right. So, ladies, the world will not end if you pump the brakes, gather yourself, slow down, and show respect. Yep, absolutely, Bria. I'm glad you were able to course correct. It's so important, so important. And Bria says, in my 20s, I realized I was never landing my plane. I was just going on and on and on, but not anymore. That's a married woman telling you how she got better in her marriage. All right, ladies. So don't be so stubborn. Don't be, this is the hill I have to die on. If you've gotten that feedback, if you've gotten that warning, take it seriously. All right. So she was very difficult to talk to. So we asked her some questions, and you all know these women. We know these women. You ask them a question, and they want to tell you about statistics or about what they've heard, or, I knew somebody, or one time at band camp, or they got all this nonsense that they just want to say. They just got to get it out, or they heard, or did you see on TikTok, or did you hear about this? And Kevin let her talk, and he was like, so how's that working out for you? So, ladies, what can we learn from that? Men are not interested in all the random facts that we know. They want to know what's relevant. All right. So not only do we need to get to the point, but did you notice how all this stuff that was important to her, Kevin was like, so how's that working in your life? Men are very direct. They are very simple. They're not being mean. We just need to do a better job getting to the point. And a lot of times we have all this color commentary precisely because we don't want that line shown on us. We don't want anybody to say, okay, well, how are you working? How are you doing with your overspending or overeating or gossiping or whatever? All right. Randy, Jurgen is agreeing. Y'all know that one time at band camp. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Women want to come in and, well, I heard this woman went out for a run and was never to be seen again. How many times do you go out at night and just feel safe, clean as a whistle, just skipping through town? All right. So ladies, be careful about that. Condemnia says many men know these type of women all too well. It will drive a man crazy when we try to reason with unreasonable women. Yeah. And men aren't going to go crazy for you, ladies. They're just not. They're just going to shut it off. So if you have found yourself quietly or quickly dismissed, ask yourself, could this be the reason why? All right. Bria says, amen. My husband said to me, Bria, it's hard to follow you because you give me so much information. Now I give the pertinent details and communication has been so much better. I love that. I love hearing from the women that this is helping. Wonderful. Okay. So let's continue on. So this woman calls in. She's 33, never married, no children. Now in the witching hour, which we all know is a witching hour, she thought she still had time the way she was talking. She's trying to add her comment to Kevin's conversation. And immediately he was like, so what are you doing with all that you know, right? So she had a 4-year relationship with an older man. I think she said he was like 9 years older than her. She was maybe 31. He was 40. 4-year relationship, didn't go anywhere. Before that, she had a 3-year relationship, didn't go anywhere. All right. Thank you, Irving, for the hand claps, and to you, Bria, too. Okay, so Kevin asked her a very important question, and this is a question that I used to ask women when I was coaching. Now I mainly focus on married women because I'm just not going to waste my time helping you get out of your own way. But he asked her, were you marriage-minded when you started this relationship? And about 20 minutes later, when she finally answered it, she said, no, I was boyfriend minded. Now, ladies, this is important. Now, I'm not saying you got to say, hey, I want to be married on the first date. And, when do you think we're going to make this official? You can't swing the pendulum that far. I see women doing that because you've wasted a decade. Your hot girl summer turned into a hot girl decade. And now you think you're going to run a man into the ground and nail him to the wall because your clock is ticking. It's not going to work that way. So that's why I say, ladies, we need to date with intent. For me, the purpose of dating is to determine if this is a suitable match for marriage or long term. If you have a suitable man, then you lock in, you find out what he needs from a woman, and you be that every time consistently. Men lock it down when they get to a point where they're like, yeah, this is the one. I don't want to do this without her. It's not you rushing them. All right. If you decide that he is not a suitable match, you need to exit gracefully but swiftly because you don't have time to waste. I do not understand, like she said, all these reasons why he wasn't a good match for her. And then again, 20 minutes later of talking, Kevin was like, so why did you spend 4 years with him? 4 years. And she said, I know, I was in my prime. He was like, no, not prime years. You were in your critical years. You all know Kevin said the danger zone is 27 to 35. That is precisely when everything you do needs to be done with intention. I think when we're even younger. But ladies, don't get it twisted. Our prime years, what is it? Like 18 to 24 or 18 to 25 or something like that. Your early 20s. Once you're in your late 20s, you're closer to 30. And I'm going to tell you something Mr. President said. Ladies, let this sink in. If you met the man of your dreams tomorrow, and I've only had one student that this has happened to, if you marry the man of your dreams tomorrow, met him, it's 2 years before you all are starting a family, minimum, because you're going to take a year to date and get to know him and his family while you're vetting him and he's vetting you. And then let's say there's an engagement and it's going to be another year before you get married because everybody wants these ridiculous weddings. And then let's say you got married on your, I'm sorry, you got pregnant on your wedding night. The kid isn't coming until almost what, 2.5, 3 years later. So those of y'all that are in your late 20s thinking you got time, or in your early 30s thinking you got time, 35 is going to be here before you know it. The years really, really start to stack up. As they say, the days are long, but the years are short. And then that's when you start acting like a wild woman, because now you're panicking and you're realizing, whether you agree with Mother Nature or not, whether you believe in science or not, post 35, it is geriatric pregnancy. I married young, but we waited to have the kids, but I made sure we had them before I was 35 because I didn't want all that poking and prodding. But here's the thing, no man is going to take the hard path. Life is already hard for him. So when you bring him a more difficult path to get to what he wants, a life of importance, a life of legacy, it's going to be a much harder sell for him to choose you over someone that it would be easier to build that with. All right. Bria said, I started a course correct at 24 years. I love it. Yeah, 9 years is a good age difference. My ex-husband was 7 years older than me. Absolutely. Irving agrees. He says, saying you're marriage-minded doesn't happen overnight. It actually takes consistency and willingness to prioritize someone other than yourself. That part. Yeah, ladies, if it's all about you, if he's got to serve you and all this foolishness that you all are hearing, just prepare to be alone. It's not how it works. We are the support system. We are the helpmates. We are the ones that make his life easier. And in turn, they move mountains for us. All right. Bria says, in my prime, I thought I was marriage-minded. I wasn't. I didn't come across Kevin Samuels until I was 26 or 27. I love that. Heather said, I went in with my heart and not my head. And that's understandable. I understand we are emotional creatures, but ladies, we can't just get butterflies or live in la la land or be like, oh, I'm just so happy here, and not realize that the days are ticking on, and the days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years. And then we were just having fun and you got nothing to show for it. Okay. Yes. Don't do it a second time. Bria says, even the Bible says, don't follow your heart. It will lead us astray. I wish I knew sooner. Yeah, we all have regrets, but hopefully this is helpful. Okay. So Kevin continued on, and he has said this before, but a lot of us have had this experience. In our early 20s, I remember this very well. Right after college, I went to at least 2 to 3 weddings a year. There was a window where like everybody I know was getting married and starting their families. Now I'm Gen X. There was a time when it's not uncommon to marry your high school sweetheart, college sweetheart, because the truth is, ladies, and Kevin said this, those early years, you're going to be in the best proximity of men that you would consider husband material. And I've said this before, once you get out into the work world, late 20s, 30s, and you start getting those promotions and long days and long commute, you're tired. You go to work and come home, go to work and come home. You're not trying to be sociable. You're not trying to get to know people. You're exhausted. So you're not bringing the best version of yourself. So he said, our counterparts, non-Black women, were going to up to 4 weddings a year. Why aren't we doing that? What are we doing in our prime years? What are we doing with our time? Ask yourself, ladies. What were you doing in your early 20s? What were you doing that was so important, that was so valuable, that got you to where you are now? All right. So he said, why are we encouraged to wait and be young and live your life? And I'm going to tell you, Kevin said this in not this episode, but I remember him saying it before. There's nothing that you can do or experience that's going to be meaningful that you can't do with your husband. Let's say you want to travel the world. Let's say you want to be a homeowner. Let's say you want to do all these things, start a business, have a hobby, whatever, side hustle. You can do all of that with your husband. Oftentimes what we see is women who have filled their life with experiences. Usually they get to a point and they're like, that's great. I got every purse. I've been to every continent. I did all that stuff. Still sad, still lonely, still empty. But if you find a man that you can work with, you may not be able to do it all at once, but believe me, if you show up as valuable in his life, he's going to move heaven and earth to help make some of your dreams come true. Meanwhile, you're building a legacy together, so you won't be lonely when you're older. All right? Aw, thank you so much. Yeah, never know. Tomorrow's not promised if we have second chances, but we can all do better. All right. So he started to ask her questions about the relationship that she was in with this older man. And again, it broke my heart because Kevin always tries to find out how did this relationship end. And she had all her 25 reasons of why he wasn't qualified yet. And still, you gave him 4 years of your time. What does that say about your judgment? But anyway, Kevin was trying to ask, how did this relationship end? And like always, the man wanted it to go further, but she was the roadblock. She was the one pushing back for whatever her reasons were. You're fine. You're entitled to do whatever you want to. But the man wanted it to go further, and she didn't. And the reason I pause and I think about this, ladies, when I talk to older women, 10 times out of 10, they had an opportunity, and for whatever reason, they didn't take it seriously, and now they regret it. I have never talked to a woman, and who am I? I'm just a mom on the internet, but I have never talked to a woman that got to this point in life and said, you know what? Nobody ever really gave me a chance. Nobody ever really, asked me for a relationship. Nobody ever. It's usually I was the runaway bride, or someone was interested in me and, I wanted to see the world first, or I didn't want to be rushed. They all remember the chance that they could have had. All right. So don't let that be you. Same thing happened. The man wanted her. She didn't want him. So Kevin did his usual peeling of the onion. And what he found, unfortunately for her, like a lot of modern women, whatever job she had, she got a promotion in her job. Then she started looking at that man that I can do better. Because that piece of paper, because that promotion, because that company put a little title behind your name, now all of a sudden you think you're better than the man that's actually going to love you when you're old and your body is breaking down. So be very careful about that, ladies. I'm seeing this now, especially with a lot of professional women. And remember what I said in the beginning, these companies, these organizations, these movements, they want your youth. They want your energy. They want your brain power. They want your creativity. They want to usurp all of that for their benefit. And then when they're done, they'll move on to the next one, because there's somebody turning 18 every day. The president will tell you there's a new one born every day. All right. So you need to grab onto the opportunity when it presents itself to you. All right. So he started talking to her more. Come to find out, she's an only child. Excuse me. I'm not an only child. We didn't want to have only children. I'm not a doctor, so I don't have experience in this area, but apparently there's this thing called only child syndrome. And Kevin was talking to her about it. Excuse me. And he said most of the men that he knew that were older children, or the people that he knew, didn't marry. And I'm just sharing what I've heard. I'm not an expert in this, but when you are an only child, what they say is you're so used to everything being about you that nobody can ever measure up. So what happens is you spend so much time disqualifying everything around you, you kind of end up alone in the end, because you've never had to share, you've never had to compromise. Whatever you wanted, you got it. Probably not everybody's experience, definitely not my experience. But what can we learn from that, ladies? If you are the type of woman that shoots down every opportunity, finds fault with every man, thinks that it is your way or the highway forever and ever, amen, you could find yourself, even if you're not an only child, still being alone, because nobody's going to put up with that. Life and relationships is about compromise. It's about working together. It's about sacrifice. That's what love really is. It's about sacrifice. So if you didn't have that growing up, if you didn't have parents who told you no, if you didn't have to wait your turn it's going to be harder for you. And Kevin said in this episode, he realized that about himself. And so he started doing things when he was working on his own personal development to volunteer, to serve others, to make sure that he was mindful that there was a world out there that was bigger than just him. Okay. So he started asking her questions about her upbringing and who, made decisions in the family. And another one of her long-winded versions of she had a mom and a dad, but you could tell by the way she was just running through life, she really hadn't consulted her dad, or there really wasn't a male presence in her life that she respected. And what Kevin said is, I can tell by the way you answer questions. And ladies, let's pause on this one for a moment. I didn't know this, but the way we carry ourselves speaks volumes. I have had men tell me, I know there's a Mr. President without knowing Mr. President. Meaning, if you are a wild woman out here doing whatever you want to do, it shows up in who you are, in how you carry yourself, in how you speak, in how you behave, in what you dress. You don't even have to say anything. People can tell, oh, she don't respect anybody. She doesn't listen to anybody. She don't answer to anybody. And so a lot of times, ladies, you can get disqualified without even knowing or having the opportunity to mess up. Men see it from a mile away. And I've had women crying in front of me, oh, I just needed more time, or I just wanted another chance. Again, we're not entitled to multiple chances. We're not entitled to an audience. So when I tell you how you communicate with men matters, it's true. And that's what Kevin told her. The fact that a man asks you a question and it takes you 20 minutes to land that plane. Number one, he's asking himself, do I want to live with this? Do I want to deal with this for the rest of my life? And the answer is no. But what that also tells him, and Kevin called it out in this example, this Brittany woman, she was getting advice from a whole bunch of women. So ladies, the way we talk with our girlfriends, the way we talk with women, we go on and tell the same stories, and it's fun in the moment. And Kevin said that at the end of this, he was like, you're having a good old time, but this is exhausting. So look at the difference, ladies. So be careful about thinking, well, this is just who I am, and you just got to take me for me, and I just want to say what's on my mind. Okay, you can be loud and wrong and alone. So you really got to work on that. Men are only going to tell you one time, if they tell you at all. Most of the time, they're just going to be like, yeah, I'm not trying to fix this. Just let somebody else do it. Jurgen says men are not interested in the titles of women. Yeah, be careful about that, ladies, thinking I'm a PhD or I'm a manager or I'm a supervisor. Nobody cares. All right. Bert says it's true. Irving says, I agree, Maggie, 100%. By a certain age, we all meet at least one person who is eligible. Some of us might be too prideful to admit that, but you said it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bria. James says they're not loyal. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful. So we talked about that. We talked about, it's going to take you at least 2 years to get the outcome that you want if everything lines up perfectly, if you start today. And how many of us, life happens perfectly, all right? So ladies, most of you are 4 to 5 years away from the outcome that you want, especially if you got some behavior change to do. All right, so Kevin told her, you got a lot of opinions, but you got a lot of opinions from women. And I'll say it, ladies, and it's going to hurt, but our men aren't interested in, well, so-and-so said, and I heard, and all that. They don't want to hear that from us. They sure as heck don't want to hear it from all of our chronically single, chaotic friends. All right. Be careful about bringing that into your relationship. Keep that over there. Go talk to them about their multiple crash outs and on again, off again relationships. And you all know who your chaotic friends are. Don't you bring that into your relationship. Your man does not want that. Okay. So Kevin asked her, and this is another one that was so difficult. He asked her to rate himself. And you all know Kevin had a scale from 1 to 10, but you can't use 7. He asked her to rate herself. And it was painful to listen to her not answer the question. Rate myself. I don't know what that means. Like, what do the numbers mean? Like, I don't know. I guess I'm average. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know I'm not a 10, but I don't know how to rate it was so embarrassing Can I say that? I was embarrassed for her. And these are the things when it's like, I know why you're single. Oh my goodness. Ladies, we got to do better about that. All right. Don't be so hung up on your own ways that you can't take correction and you just got to be so right. And at the end of the day, you win the battle, but you lose the war. Irving says, as the definition of compromise breaks down, both parties make concessions and give up something they want to reach a mutual agreement, which of course takes a selfless spirit. Absolutely. Oh, James says jobs are not loyal. Yeah, that's true. Ladies, those days are over. And I've seen this with professional women, and it makes me so sad when I see women work themselves to the bone. And then you get that meeting in the office, and they're like, thank you, but your last day is Friday. And the look on their face, especially when they haven't prioritized marriage and family, and they're just coming home to their own company. Now that's terrifying. All right. Jurgen says single women keep women single. We heard the late, great Kevin Samuel say that. Okay. So landing this plane, Kevin told her, look, I'm going to shoot you straight. You're an average woman. No woman spends 3 years or 4 years with a man who's not suitable. Right? So, ladies, if you stayed around for multiple years, there was potential there. For whatever reason, maybe you blew it up, but you've had an opportunity. Don't pretend that nobody gave you an opportunity. But he told her, look, all these ambitions that you want out of life, you all know his questions. Do you want to work? Do you want to stay home? Do you want this? I live in LA. All the things that he wants. He was like, do you know how much that costs? He said, you got a lot going on. He tried to get her to go to therapy and all this stuff. She was arguing him down. He was like, I'm going to tell you, ambitious men are not going to deal with this. He said, men don't talk this much. He's like, I do this for a living. He was using her to make an example for all of us to listen to. But ladies, the men that you want, like Mr. President told me, I'm going to tell you one time in a row and let you figure it out. I was like, oh my God, he's so mean. I love it, but he's so mean. But the men that we want are not going to go 12 rounds with us. So if that's what you're used to, if that's what gives you a thrill, if you like just debating for debate's sake, you will not have the type of man that you admire and respect. And if you're okay with that, that's fine. Maybe you're going to be with your girlfriends, or maybe you're just going to date casually, but no man is going to put up with that for 30, 40, 50 years. All right. Gillis is laughing. Y'all like that. All right. Here's the other thing that Kevin told Miss Brittany at 33, who was just a chaotic mess. He was like, you got a lot going on. This is too much. No man who is high value, ambitious, worth his salt is going to put up with this. And then he said this: no amount of intimacy, he used the other word, can fix this. And no meal that you can make after this can fix this. So you know I perked up with that. What does that mean, ladies? If you are a lot, if you've been given that feedback like I got, just sit down somewhere. You just doing too much. Just sit down. But it's true. Why do you think I signed up for etiquette classes? But if you think your body parts are going to overcome a chaotic life, a bad attitude, an argumentative spirit, if you think your cooking skills or, whatever way that you think you can, give him what you think he wants as a form of apology, Kevin was saying that there's nothing that you can do after this to make me go through what I just went through every day. So ladies, again, if you're beautiful, be beautiful. If you've got good cooking skills, have good cooking skills. But that is not going to replace the peace that a man requires. It would be much better for you to be peaceful and average, peaceful and cook the same 3 meals, than be exceptional, exceptionally beautiful, or Michelin star chef and be a battle axe at home. All right. Jurgen says, for modern women, many men are just placeholders. Oh, that's sad. And then they are the ones saying we're all the good men. Bria says, women were the ones telling men, oh, women's were the ones telling me that men like titles. So I went for 2 master's degrees and I found out later from men that it didn't matter. Luckily, I paid cash or I'd be in debt. Absolutely. I got a master's degree too. I went to work. My company paid 100% tuition reimbursement. Mr. President don't care. And I don't lead with that because at the end of the day, that big degree is going to get you a big job, which is going to get you big attitude. And how's that working out for you? All right. Bria says, yes, listen to the men about what they want. If you want a man, you need to listen to the men, not the women that don't have one. James says, yeah, I'm not arguing with you. I want peace and quiet. And Bria agrees. Even my husband didn't argue. He didn't speak much. He likes his quiet, and I'm grateful for my husband. I love that. I'm so grateful too. Ladies, it's true. And I've heard women say that, you think that a man is going to talk all day with you about the foolishness that you think is important. Men want peace at home. And if you can't be peaceful, then you really can't be with a man. Just go do that over there. That's why we have our hobbies. That's why I'm talking to y'all. That's why I do things that are wholesome, but let me get it out. That's why I'm crazy in the kitchen. I can't bring all that chaos to Mr. President. All right. So in closing, Kevin was telling her, there's no amount of extraness that can fix all this. Everything that I've recommended to you, you're like, oh yeah, I know. I thought about that. Oh yeah, I know. But you haven't done it. All right. Ladies, the men that we admire and respect are men of action. All right. So be very careful about a man telling you something and you just let it blow past. They're not going to keep repeating themselves. They're not going to tell you 5 times. I had one woman tell me in tears, I know, Maggie, you've told me that 5 times. And I was like, so I'm supposed to say it 5 more times? Oh no, I'm not getting old doing that. So he told her, look, you got a lot going on. So ladies, if you've gotten that feedback from men, hopefully this has been helpful for you. He brought it back home to the only child thing. And again, I'm not a doctor, but you got to make sure that your soft skills, your social skills are on par with the caliber of men that you want. All right. A lot of times we work on all this stuff. If the inside, if your presence is only superficial, you will only have a use that is superficial. So I'm not saying don't look nice. That's fine. Men like to look at something pretty, but better believe it. You got one time in a row to show that there's nothing besides that. You will get quickly put to the side and replaced with somebody average like me. All right. So this episode ended. He had to hang up on her. She was like, can I ask you one more question? Can I ask you one more question? Can I ask you? He hung up the call and he did the salute, and Taps was playing in the background. And I'm going to leave you all with this. It was a funny moment, not really, but if you watch this episode, when Kevin got off the phone with this woman, this 33-year-old Brittany, chronically single, knows everything but not doing it, the way Kevin decompressed really spoke volumes to me. Go back and watch it. He hung up the phone with her. He played Taps and he was like, my God, so exhausting. You're not going to wear me out like that. No, you need to book a session. I'm not answering 20 questions for you. He had this whole fit after he got off the phone with her. So what can we learn from that, ladies? Ask yourself, how do you leave people once you're no longer in their space? I thought it was so interesting to watch that. I always want to leave people better than I found them. What I try to do for Mr. President is make sure every interaction with him is a good one that he wants to come back to. So ladies, you can ask yourself, what are people saying about you? Kevin used to say, interview your exes. Do you know what it's like to be with you? And when you leave the space, if people are like, oh, make it stop, I'm so glad she's gone. That's not a good thing, ladies. And if you think, well, that's just me, or I gotta, I gotta keep it real, or I'm gonna say what's on my mind. Okay, you can continue to do that and be alone. And here's a hint. How do people receive you when you enter a space? That's what I teach the ladies in the finishing school. And, we're done. Lucy and I are retired. This is our last session. But take some time to read the room, ladies. When you enter a space, notice how the men that you like respond. Do they lean in and want to get to know you more? Or are they suddenly busy, distracted? I got to run. That's a hint and a half. And if you don't know, watch how they react to the women that you see yourself like. Do some people watching, whether or not it's, celebrities or other people. All right. Well, I'm getting the hints. I need to put my apron on. Mr. President is hungry, so I need to get cooking. Let me see what y'all are saying in the chat. And I'm going to love you and leave you here. Again, I will put up my free communication class. You all can watch it. It's an on-demand video. Ladies, if you're struggling with your communication, if you've gotten feedback, if you don't feel like you have the audience of the caliber of men that you're interested in, that is something that you can work on. And I'll put it up free for you all so you can listen to it. All right. It'll be at teachablemomentswithmaggie.com sometime tomorrow because I got company. Let's see. Bria says, I've seen that in a lot of Kevin Samuels videos. Women don't want to answer his questions, but they always want to ask him questions. That's true, ladies. If a man asks you a direct question, here's what I do. Give him a direct answer and then wait. And if there's more, ask him, would you like me to clarify or do you need any more information? Executive men make decisions just like that. It's one of the things I love about Mr. President. He's so decisive. Little information, he knows exactly what he needs to do. All right. So don't be clouding all that with your thoughts. Bria says, I respected how he was direct. Either book a session or utilize this free call in the best way. Absolutely. James says, I've been married for 28 years. It takes both of you to compromise. You can make it, but it takes you both working every day on your marriage. No shortcuts. Absolutely. And if that sounds like too much work for you, then just stay single. Those of us who want to be married, those of us who want to be wives, we look forward to working and learning and building and getting feedback and coaching and getting better. We look forward to building something together. If you think you're going to come in the door and not going to be humbled with any feedback, you're not ready for a relationship, especially not with a high value man. All right. One of you natural says, wow, I hope that was helpful. Bria says, that was me in my 20s. That's just me. Modern woman mentality. And I share that with you all as a reformed modern woman. All right. I see myself in a lot of younger women, but we can do better. And believe me, I'm happier than I've ever been. Thank you so much for the love, Jurgen. Mr. McCullough on Instagram says, my advice to men is to look at the mother. She'll largely be her mother when you have to deal with her. Chaotic family equals chaotic potential life partner. Buyer beware. It's such a good point. Mr. President knows Nana, and he remembers how she had me, Maggie, in the kitchen. And it's not something you can choose, but it can definitely help you. And if it's not the example that you want your man to look at and say, that's going to be me in 20 years, do something every day to correct it. All right. Oh, thank you, Ifo. You like the direct answers. Okay, y'all, I will let you all go. So I'm here with the Wives Club. Once a month, Kevin's channel puts out new content the first Friday of every month, and I come and react to it for you all. I'll clip this up and get it up because you all like the clips. My cooking content is Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, and then I make little clips every day. So I'm Maggie, the substitute teacher. Let me say thank you so much to Condemnia. I'm glad you're back. Thank you for the $20. And Irving, thank you so much for the €2. I appreciate that. Looks like we got our moderators and our super chats back. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and love you and leave you here. If you want some cooking content, I'm sure I'll be making something for Mr. President soon, so y'all can check that out. All right, everybody.